Hello. Hopefully, let me wipe my camera. Hello, hello, hello. I hope all is well. Yeah, that's a little bit better. And let me bring this down a little bit. There we are. That should be good. Hello, everyone. Hello, hello. I hope all is well today. Happy MLK Day. And I hope you took a pause today to reverence MLK on this day. And this is also a good day to talk about our topic as well, too. When we're talking about navigating change, this is just something that I wanted to really take some time. Hello, how are you? I wanted to take some time to talk about. I felt like it was the best time to chat about. So we have 9 affirmations on navigating change. Just to kind of talk through the fact that I'm talking about change as it relates to things that we can't control, right? Because a lot of times, if we have change that we create, a lot of times it's on us, right? It's on us. But this is more so of change that relates to things that are within our environment, things that involve other people, things that we have a hard time like navigating. So that's what these affirmations are for. I'm good. I'm tired. But other than that, I'm good. Thank you so much for asking. So I hope these affirmations are helpful. Like I said, there's 9 of them. Feel free to use them however you want to use them. So if you want to just write them down and use them for journaling, if you want to write them down and post them up on your wall, if you feel like you only want to take down the ones that make the most sense for you, that's perfectly fine. If you need to change any of the language so that way it makes sense to you or it holds true for you, because sometimes when you read affirmations, it may sound good, but you don't feel like you believe it in that moment. So if you need to change the wording, just so that way it holds true for you when you use it, feel free to do that. And yeah, I have 9 of them. So I'm going to start with the first one. And then also too, if you have questions about affirmations in general, how to use affirmations, or if you have a question about the specific affirmation that I'm talking about, just let me know. Drop them in the comments. Okay, number 1, and I hope my music isn't too loud. Number 1. Hey, how are you? You didn't miss anything. I'm about to go right into the first one. The first one for navigating change. Change is my ally, and I embrace it with an open heart and a clear mind. Change is my ally, and I embrace it with an open heart and a clear mind. So when we're talking about change, and again, this is change that we cannot control. This isn't anything of our own doing. It's based off of our environment or something that we cannot control, right? When it comes to this particular affirmation, this is more so of reminding us of what change is. A lot of times when we think of change, especially ones that we can't control or ones that come into our lives unexpectedly, we always think of it as being like not always, but a lot of times we'll think of it as being a negative thing. Or this is something that's negative that's happening to me and not happening for me, right? So understanding that change can be an ally, even if it doesn't look good, even if it doesn't look like it's beneficial in that moment. Thinking of it as an ally can more so help you to think outside of the box and to see past whatever that negativity is. Hey, Whitney, how are you? Welcome. So we're talking about navigating change. I just did the first affirmation. The first one is change is my ally, and I embrace it with an open heart and a clear mind. So just being able to understand that we have to embrace change, especially that change that is unexpected, that's outside of our environment, outside of what we can control and in part of our environment. So understanding that if we think about it in a different way, as it being an ally versus it being a negative thing that's happening to me instead of for me, it will help us to accept that change and be able to navigate it better versus giving it so much resistance. A lot of times we meet change with resistance, and that's where our biggest stressors come from. That's where burnout happens. That's where we get frustrated, overwhelmed. So yes, and yes, thank you for putting that in the comments. Absolutely. Change is my ally, and I embrace it with an open heart and a clear mind. Number 2, change is an opportunity for growth, and I am ready to grow. Change is an opportunity for growth, and I am ready to grow. So a lot of times when change happens or comes unexpectedly, we meet it with a lot of resistance because we are comfortable, right? So if we have such a high level of comfort and change comes, we meet it with that resistance, or we get so frustrated or annoyed because it's an inconvenience, right? It's an inconvenience, it's uncomfortable. Now I have to do this, or now it's causing me to have to do this, or now I have to deal with this person and I didn't want to deal with them. So it's usually the resistance comes from us just being uncomfortable, or it's making us have to do more work than we expected. So this affirmation is more so of thinking of any of those changes that come along as an area of opportunity to grow. It's an area for us to get better versus it being an area of us just being beaten down, or we take on the victim mindset of, oh, woe is me, this is happening to me, why is this happening? When we go into that, it gets into a spiral, and then that's where, again, burnout, frustration, and all that other stuff happens. Whitney says, I agree. Positive reframing is so helpful in the long run because it brings hope. Absolutely. And thank you. I'm Hotep for putting the next one in the comments. I really do appreciate you. Yes, it does bring hope. And a lot of times when we get into that thought process of this is happening to me, again, this is happening to me and not for me. So it's shifting our mindset to this is happening for me versus it happening to me. When we get into that woe is me concept of being the victim and the victim mentality, and not to say that we can't say like something's happening to me, and we can't ask that question. The more that we stay in that mindset, though, the more frustrated and stressed that we become, and the more resistant we become to the change. Um, so now, of course, you have to feel those feelings and process those feelings, and it's okay to feel that way. But being aware that it's there and taking the time to process it when it happens versus meeting it with resistance right away is how we're able to move forward faster. A lot of times we end up in procrastination and all of that because of the fact that, I mean, procrastination is just, a response to the resistance of change. That's really all it is. So just understanding that we have to be aware of it. This might be loud. We have to be aware of it. And the more aware we are, the faster we'll be able to accept it and process it so we can move forward in that season of change. So yes, that was change is an opportunity for growth, and I am ready to grow. Number 3, I am resilient, adaptable, and capable of handling whatever comes my way. I am resilient, adaptable, and capable of handling whatever comes my way. So this one's more of a motivation, right? Reminding ourselves of our capabilities and how resilient we can be, referring back to times where we may have navigated a change that like this, like, so if a change comes our way and it's something that I navigated before, reminding ourselves that we've done it before. This is something that we can do again, right? Also, just thinking through, it gives you the opportunity to think through the situation in a creative way. and understanding that, hey, I can adapt to this, I can adjust to this, I can pivot for this. If I just do this, then it's not that bad. Or if I do this, and then this will help me to learn during this process. So just understanding that you can be resilient, you can be adaptable and capable of handling whatever comes your way, and actually receiving that and believing that within your heart, repeating that however you need to repeat it, writing it out. A lot of times we get frustrated because we just don't feel like we have, just kind of like going back to Whitney said, like we feel like we don't have any hope. We feel like we don't have any, there is no way out when it comes to whatever change that comes our way. So this is just a reminder and a motivation of we can be resilient, we can be adaptable, and we can be capable, and we are capable. So that was number 3. I am resilient, adaptable, and capable of handling whatever comes my way. Number 4, rejection is protection. This next season will create a better version of myself. Thank you, I am Hotep, for putting that in. Rejection is protection. This next season will create a better version of myself. I'll say that again. I know I said that twice, but I want to say that again. Rejection is protection. This next season will create a better version of myself. So understanding that anytime that we are rejected, whether it be, and this is more so, again, this is more so of something that we didn't create. It's something that's happening in our environment, or something that we cannot control, right? Yes, it is a hard lesson to learn. I think it's one of the hardest lessons to learn in life. When you're rejected, it's the worst feeling in the world, right? That's one of the worst feelings of the world. And a lot of times we navigate life just simply because we navigate life the way that we're navigating it, just simply because we don't want to be rejected, right? We don't want to be looked at in a certain way. We want to hold ourselves at a certain caliber, have a certain level of respect for the people around us. So when we're rejected, that gives us the opposite feeling. But understanding that rejection is protection, and this is a season for you to be able to create a better version of yourself. And a lot of times where change happens because we need to grow, and it kind of goes back to number 2, change is an opportunity for growth. But this is just another way of saying, like, a lot of times that rejection happens because of the fact that there's something out there in that situation that we didn't see, that wasn't beneficial for us. There's there's something better for us. And in order for us to meet that better, we have to be rejected or be removed from a certain situation. And a lot of times life removes us from those situations because it knows, I'm just going to go off of God, but God knows that we're not going to be able to remove ourselves. So he removes us for us in order to protect us. So rejection is protection. This next season will create a better version of myself. A lot of times when that rejection happens, it forces us to regroup. It forces us to think outside the box. It forces us to figure out a new way, or it forces us to into our purpose. A lot of times our purpose doesn't look favorable all the time, right? It's not in our plan, right? But sometimes that rejection has to happen in order for us to rethink things and to regroup and to replan and to just explore and discover like what we really want, what we really need. A lot of times we're in spaces that other people ordained for us versus it being something that God has ordained for us, or even something that we want personally. So we have to take all of that into consideration when thinking about situations of rejection. So and I can even give an example. I think I've talked about this before. I've been in the tech industry for the past 6 years, right? And if anybody knows about the tech industry, this past year, 2023, was one of the worst years. Like, Google just had another layoff. Just one of the worst years to work in tech when you're in recruiting. So I'm in tech recruiting, right? So I was laid off twice this year, or 2023. I was laid off twice. And it caused me to really rethink my career and rethink my career path. And I thought it was on one direction, but now me going into 2024, I'm in a whole different direction of what I want to do with my career. And the route that I'm going, I'm not going to share too much yet, but the route that I'm going is a route that will help more people, and it will be more of a benefit, not necessarily to myself, but the people that are around me, and a benefit to everybody, benefit to my family, to my children, a benefit to the people that I help in my lives and my meditation classes that I offer. It will be so much of a help in so many different ways. But I honestly know for a fact that would not have went this route if my layoffs didn't happen. So that's just an example of rejection is protection, or it's a way to get you on the path that you should be on. I know for a fact if I was making the salary that I was making at the time, if I was working as much as I was making at that time, I wouldn't have taken the time to really even think outside of the box, because I would have thought I wouldn't need it, right? I'm like, I don't need it. Like, I'm making good money. I have a great career. I'm progressing in that career. I'm successful in it. So I feel like God, it was like, listen, the only way that you're going to get what I need you to get and go the way that you're going to go is by removing you completely and having you sit and think through this stuff, right? And granted, I needed the break too. The recruiting life in tech is stressful. It's stressful. You're trying to hit all of these different goals. You get frustrated, and it gave me a break. It may not have been the break that I wanted, but it gave me a break to really, one, get back in connection with God. Not to say I was ever away from Him 100%, but my connection definitely deepened that past year, and really take the time to discover what I want, what I need, and how I can help the people that I'm already helping even more. So that was long-winded, but I hope that gives you a good example of how rejection can be protection. And I hope that also gives you a way for you to think about your own life and think about these situations that you found yourself in the past where you were rejected, but it was actually protecting you. Because the more that you're aware of those situations, when it happens again, you can refer back to, oh, I remember when this happened, or I remember when this happened, I was rejected and it ended up being a great situation for me. So really think through it and think about situations that you can refer back to. Refer back to. I'm new to the channel, but I'm grateful for your channel. Oh, thank you. I really do appreciate you. Thank you for joining the live. Um, I'm trying to make sure that I get on a new schedule, because of the schedule was originally me just posting on Sundays, but now that I've added lives, we'll be doing lives on Mondays, and then releasing new material on Wednesdays, new meditations. And then Friday is going to be specialty meditations. So usually those will probably be Christian-based meditations specifically. But yeah, I am excited for the new schedule. How do you keep a positive attitude towards rejections, though? It's easier said than done. I'm saying it. It probably sounds really great, and you're like, "Oh yeah, gung ho, let's do this." It's easier said than done. When it comes to rejection, it's one, taking the time to process it, because, and just kind of going back to my layoff, like I went through a series of emotions, right? And I think sometimes when it comes to rejection, you go through a grieving process, right? So if you think about the grief process of, something happens to where you're rejected or something dies, right? That's pretty much why it comes back to it being a grieving process. And you go through the thought process of bargaining and anger, and you're trying to go through all of these processes. So I think that the first thing when it comes to trying to have a positive attitude about rejection is understanding that there is a process, an emotional process that you have to go through and allow yourself to feel. A lot of times we prolong the negativity by not allowing our emotions to actually process. How are you feeling because of the rejection? Why are you feeling that way? What is the core of the reason of that you're feeling that way? Um, a lot of times is linked to the fact that I said it earlier, or it might have been in another live, where a lot of times we go through this process and we struggle with it because we're uncomfortable. It's just uncomfortable. You know what I mean? It's either uncomfortable or it's an inconvenience. And that uncomfortability is what causes us to be so frustrated and angry and stressed. So taking the time to be aware of your feelings and your emotions that are surrounding it, giving yourself the chance to process it versus suppressing it. So a lot of times we'll feel the feeling, but we try to suppress it like, I'm good, I'm fine, I'm straight. No, you're not. No, you're not. So just being honest with yourself and saying, okay, this is how I'm feeling. Why am I feeling that way? Let me process it so that way I can get to acceptance and then move forward in acceptance. Finding the positives, finding how you can grow, finding the area of opportunity, finding ways that you can learn from that situation versus it being, and I said this a couple of times, but versus it being this is happening to me versus it's happening for me. What's the way that it's happening for you versus to you? So thinking about all of those things, journaling, allowing yourself to process it so that way it's in the forefront and then you can accept it and move forward. And holding on to hope, finding hope in those situations. There's a lot of ways that you can do it. I hope that's helpful or that answered your question. But yeah, there's it's definitely easier said than done, and it also will take practice. And it also comes back to recalling situations where you navigated the change and it was a benefit for you, even though it didn't seem like it in the first place. So true. Taking the time to process it is important. Suppressing is time consuming. Yes, it is. Suppressing is time consuming. It's a waste of time. Suppressing is a waste of time and it's a distraction. So understanding that it is a distraction. I've definitely been guilty of moving on and then confused after the fact because I didn't take that time. Yeah, because we're always taught, especially even from the time that we were younger, to suck it up, right? Like you remember when you were, back in the day when you used to you get a butt whooping or whatever, and it's like, all right, suck it up. I better not see you cry. I better not hear you cry. And we're forced to suppress, especially men, forced to suppress our emotions and feelings to the point where it starts to eat away internally, and then that internal eat away starts to manifest itself in other areas. So it will manifest itself in relationships, or manifest ourselves in itself in our work ethic, or in procrastination, or self-sabotage, or just so many different areas. But it will start to manifest. It's not going to go away. It's just going to manifest in other areas and have displacement, displaced anger, displaced sadness, displacement all around. um Suppressing is easier, but because processing is time consuming. But see, suppression is, it may look like it's easier, but it is time consuming because it's prolonging your healing. So that's what I meant by it's time consuming, because when you suppress, it prolongs the fact that you can actually heal from whatever traumatic event that is. So in the long run, it is actually time consuming. It sucks your time because now you're trying to suppress something. Whereas if you took the time to process it initially, you could have moved on in a more healthy and more effective way versus suppressing it. And suppression can be months, it could be years, it could be a long period of time where you're suppressing something and then it blows up and shows up in another area, and now you got to go back to the beginning and process what happened 10 years ago, and that's time consuming. So in a way you're still right as far as it being time consuming, because of the fact that suppression just prolongs your healing, and nobody wants to prolong healing. um yes, it will definitely show up elsewhere. Dream, Oh yeah, so saying something tonight. Yeah. Yes, I'm definitely saying so. I'm just saying it may not look, it may look like suppressing it is easier. I can see how you would say that suppressing something is easier, but in essence it's not, because now it's taken over your internal being to the point where you have to either hold on to that suppression internally until it blows up, and start all over. So yes, absolutely. Suppress rather than process, but fully understand processing is a healthier option. Absolutely. Most people suppress the feelings because they're so uncomfortable. You can shorten the sting of rejection by actually allowing yourself to feel the feelings in real time and learning the lesson. Absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of times we mess up and slow down our own healing and processing. Or you will have to repeat the lesson. Yes. And a lot of times you'll see that you're repeating the lesson often. It will just keep coming back around. You're like, why does it keep coming back around? Or a lot of times you see it in relationships, whether it be romantic or just platonic relationships. You'll keep meeting the same person, but in different forms. You know what I mean? You'll keep meeting the same people and getting close to these same people, and this comes to have the same result at the end, and you're not understanding why. It's because we're not learning the lesson, and our trauma is attracting whatever that type of person is. So absolutely, if you don't learn a lesson the first time, it will definitely come back around, and it may not look the same initially, but in the end, you're like, yeah, that was the same thing. That was the same thing. Awesome. That was number 4. Rejection is protection. This next season will create a better version of myself. Number 5. Not all change is bad, and I am capable of creating positive change in my life. Man, my comment got lost in confusion. I was saying we normally suppress because processing is more time consuming. I've been guilty of that, but now know that that's not a healthier option. Yeah, like like I was saying, it may seem like processing is more time consuming, but essentially it's not. It's really not, because if you take the time to process, now that processing time may take 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or whatever, but that is much shorter than your suppression of months or weeks or years. You know what I mean? Because now you're accounting your suppression time and then your processing time. Whereas if you just processed, the suppression is completely eliminated. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. So, no, I understand what you're saying. On the surface, processing feels or seems like it will take much longer, but that's the trick. That's the trick of you going into the suppression mode. So I hope that's helpful. Number 5 was not all change is bad, and I am capable of creating positive change in my life. Not all change is bad, and I am capable of creating positive change in my life. So, okay, perfect. I'm glad that made sense. Okay. Um, so when it comes to change, a lot of times we struggle with it because we look at all change as being bad, right? It's a bad thing for change. If something changes and I'm moving outside of my comfortability, and especially if it's a sudden change, if it's something that happens suddenly, which anything happens suddenly is pretty much an era of trauma, right? So if anything happens actually to where, I'm gonna skip the ad. Hold on, because there was an ad that's about to come up from you guys. I skipped it for you. Okay. Not so when it comes to the change, if we look at it and shift our mindset of it being an area of us being able to create a positive change in our life versus it being a negative. Now, granted, again, this is change outside of our control. This is not change that we're actually creating ourselves, because sometimes it can be detrimental if we make a change ourselves that isn't a healthy change or a healthy decision. I'm talking about things that happen outside of our control that we're having to navigate, right? So not all change is bad. Not all change is going to have a negative result, even though it may look like it at times. Um, Changes is like the feeling of stepping into the unknown, if that makes sense. Yeah, it's a level of uncertainty, and when we have a level of uncertainty, that's uncomfortable, and that is a normal human experience and response to change. We just have to take the time to notice it, be aware of it, take the time to process our emotions surrounding it, so that way we can accept it and embrace it. Because the easier and faster that you're able to accept and embrace change, the easier it will be for you to navigate through it. Not to say it's going to be an easy navigation, but it will make it easier for you to process it and move along with it, versus you trying to resist it and trying to walk against the waves. You ever, get into one of those wave pools where you're walking in and all of the waves come up and they just keep pushing you back, and you're just like, hey, it's just easier for me to fall back and allow the waves to push me. Sometimes we just have to lay back and allow the waves to push us, you know what I mean? So that way we're able to process it, and by the time we get back to the shore, we're like, oh, that was better. It actually saved me. Really, I could have drowned. Me doing all this fighting and falling out and all the flailing and trying to beat the waves. You're not gonna beat the waves. They waves. They waves. You're not gonna beat it. Just lay back and allow it to bring you back to shore, and you should be good. Now, sometimes you're gonna fight through the waves. You're gonna have to swim the opposite direction, but at least the waves are gonna now help you swim the opposite direction versus you trying to swim against the waves. I hope that makes sense. Um, but yeah, absolutely. I was trying to speak for us people who've had to learn the healthier options. Haha, it's a journey. Yes, it is a journey. Absolutely. So just understanding that not all change is bad. Sometimes you have to fall with the waves and embrace that positivity, or the positive portions of that change, because it can be a positive effect. Doesn't always have to be bad. Number 6, I make positive choices and choose paths that lead to growth and fulfillment. I make positive choices and choose paths that lead to growth and fulfillment. So that just goes back to us in uncertainty. It goes back to us in the unknown. And a lot of times we have a hard time trusting our choices. We have a hard time trusting our decision making. And because we have a hard time trusting our decision making and our choices, we then therefore have a lot of resistance to the change, because we're used to the norm. We're used to having to make these choices every day, and when we have changes that hit our lives, that means my everyday choices and decisions are going to have to change. And I potentially don't necessarily trust my decision making process. So a lot of times that is why we have so much resistance to change, because we don't trust ourselves. And one thing I always say when it comes to not being able to trust yourself is that you have to shift your trust to God. Like I said, I do believe in God. I am a Christian. So yeah, that is something that I always resort back to. But when we see change happening, a lot of times we get frustrated because we just don't trust our decisions. We don't trust our decision making. We've made decisions in this space the wrong way in the past, and because of we have a track record of not making the right choices, we don't trust ourselves in a new experience to make the right choice. um so this is just a reaffirming of I can make positive choices and choose paths that lead to growth and fulfillment. So I hope that one's helpful. You can navigate that one the best that you can, based off of whatever your belief systems are. But yes, that is definitely one of the nuances of change that we don't think about. If we don't trust how we make decisions, it's going to be hard for us to embrace change ultimately. Um, so yes, I hope that's helpful. Number 7, I released internal resistance and allowed change to unfold naturally and gracefully. I released internal resistance and allowed change to unfold naturally and gracefully. It just comes back to us releasing the fear. A lot of times, because of unknown, the uncertainty, the uncomfortability, because of all of that, it creates fear. So we have to release that internal resistance, release that fear in order for us to allow the change to unfold the way that it should be. A lot of times with the change, we try to force things to happen then. So then we put all of our effort in trying to force something to happen because of the change. And when that's not working, that creates more frustration and burnout, and stress and even depression and sadness. So it's not just about embracing the change, but allowing it to unfold the way that it's supposed to, versus us trying to force things to happen. Now, does it make sense to be proactive? Yes. Yes, you have to be proactive. You have to take the time to plan. And if things are going to happen a certain way, being proactive is nothing wrong with that. But if we put all our energy into actually trying to force something to happen because a change hit our life, that's where, again, the frustration and the misunderstandings and the displaced anger, all that's when all of that happens, because we're trying to force something that wasn't necessarily meant to happen. So yes, to forgive yourself for the mistakes that were made. Absolutely, you have to take the time to forgive yourself. And a lot of times the mistakes that were made, because you may look at a situation and not see that you made a mistake. You're like, you know what, I just really did the best that I could, you know. um and being able to show yourself self-compassion during those times, and understanding like, hey, look, you did do the best that you could, and there's, based off of my abilities, there's nothing else that I really could have done to fix it. So taking the time to show yourself grace and giving yourself self-compassion, is truly important. And sometimes our mistakes are trusting the wrong people. So sometimes you may have to, forgive yourself, like, I did bypass that red flag, or I did see this happen, but I didn't say anything, or I didn't advocate for myself. So a lot of times forgiveness isn't necessarily for something that you actually did, but it may have been something that you missed. It may have been something that you ignored. So just making sure to forgive yourself for those small things also, not just your mistakes. How do you attract rather than chase? You attract by and not chase by working on yourself, right? I don't know if it's, and you can probably allude to like what you're out. Wait, how do you move with God but in a productive way? Yeah, so that's a loaded question, but you have to spend a lot of time with yourself in order to understand, right? Whitney says, spend more time healing rather than trying to force something to happen. Absolutely. So you have to spend, and that's kind of just what I was going along with too, Whitney, as far as you have to spend a lot of time with yourself. And a lot of times we're working on attracting things that we don't necessarily need to attract. So, in order for you to understand what you're supposed to attract to yourself, you have to know yourself. You have to spend time with yourself. You have to take the time to understand who you are and what you want. It goes back to the core values, and I just did a meditation video on core values. You have to understand what you value, what you want, what you don't want, what your limitations are, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. And really take the time to consult God on what your purpose is. Take the time to really understand you, the the inside and out. Understand who you are. A lot of times we're attracting things that aren't meant for us, or trying to attract things that aren't meant for us. And because they're not meant for us, it turns into a chase, right? We're attracting things that we're trying to attract, but because it's not for us, then we start chasing it. And a lot of times that happens because we don't understand who we are. We don't understand what our needs are completely. We think we know what they are, but we really don't. So you really have to take the time to understand who you are, who God is, what His plan is for you, and becoming and aligned in with that. And once you become and aligned with that, things will just start happening. Your name will be said in places that you've never been. you'll be able to attract, good opportunities and good people. You also have to shift your prayers to, wanting to attract the right people. God, only bring into my life that the people that are for me, and that have my best interest at heart. If there's anybody in my life that's not for me, please remove them. Now, when you do that prayer, though, because I did that prayer and a lot of people left. So be ready for that. But you have to understand, who you are and where you're going in order to attract the things that are supposed to be in your life. Yes, I did that meditation. Now my values is one of my affirmations. Awesome, awesome. In order to move with God, you have to accept his love and what he gave us. Yep, absolutely. You definitely have to accept that. Listen, that prayer will show you something. Yes, it will show you a lot of things. And one other thing that I will say is be comfortable with being alone. Start to get comfortable being by yourself. Don't be afraid of being by yourself. Solitude doesn't equate loneliness, right? So just because you're in solitude, just because you're the only one in the room, it doesn't mean that you have to be lonely. So just being comfortable with being alone and not having a lot of people. Start One of the things that I had to do is stop confiding in people. When something's happening, stop confiding in people and praying about it versus me reaching out to people and like, what do you think? What would you do? Da-da-da. Like that's how you start, building a relationship and trusting your decision making and trusting yourself. That makes sense. Thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome. I don't know what number we was on, y'all. So what were we on? That was I released internal resistance and allow change to unfold naturally and gracefully. Okay, so next one. I let go. This is number 8. I let go of what I cannot control and focus on what I can create. I let go of what I cannot control and focus on what I can create. So again, it goes back to letting go of the things that we obviously know that we're not going to be able to control. We can't control other people. We cannot control, what other people say and do. We can't control necessarily what happens around us or in our environment, but we can control our actions, right? We can control the things that we can control our actions. We can control our mindset. So let go of what you cannot control and focus on what I can create. So focusing on what you can do better, focusing on your own actions, focusing on your mindset, focusing on where you're spending your time, focusing on what you're feeding yourself spiritually, physically, emotionally, focusing on what you can control is what's most important when navigating change. Because when we're navigating change, a lot of times we're looking on the outward. We're looking at what other people are doing or what's happening to us, not for us, right? So shifting our mindset to what we can do, shifting our mindset to how we can be proactive in a situation is more use of our energy and time versus us trying to control things that we cannot control. Thank you for putting that in the comments. Awesome. So I let go of what I cannot control and focus on what I can create is number 8. And the last one, number 9, I thrive in my seasons of change, discovering potential I never knew existed. I thrive in my seasons of change, discovering potential I never knew existed. Just because you're in a season of change doesn't mean you can't thrive. A lot of times we think of our seasons of change of, but woe is me, this is happening, why is this happening, I can't do this, or I'm limited in this because I'm going through this season of change. Not necessarily the case. You can thrive in your season of change. You can be successful in your season of change. It's just that, a season of change. So embracing the thought that just because change comes doesn't mean that you have to go into this woe is me mindset. You can still thrive and be successful and have areas of your life that are of a high caliber and that are working for you. and understanding that it doesn't have to affect all areas of your life. A lot of times when we have change in one area, because we're so fixated and frustrated and angry and stressed about that one area, it bleeds into the other areas of our lives, and then everything starts to crumble. Just understanding that we can still thrive during that time. You don't have to fall apart when you're in a season of change, especially if it's in just one particular area. So understanding that and keeping your mind in a mindset of, okay, yes, this is happening, but I can still thrive. I can still be successful. I can still, push forward and have hope. Because a lot of times when we allow it to bleed into other areas of our lives, that then therefore creates the depression and the sadness, because now everything's messed up versus just one thing. So I thrive in my season of change, discovering potential I never knew existed. A lot of times when you're operating in that way, where you're thriving, but you have an area of change, you'll start to explore different avenues and discover different things, and you'll maybe even unlock a potential, or unlock a new hobby, or unlock a new skill set that you never knew was there. So that was the last one. I thrive in my seasons of change, discovering potential I never knew existed. That was number 9. So awesome. I'll go back through them all really quick, just so that way you have them all down. Thank you, I'm Hotep, for putting this all in the chat. I really do appreciate you. Number 1 was change is my ally, and I embrace it with an open heart and clear mind. Number 2, change is an opportunity for growth, and I am ready to grow. Number 3, I am resilient, adaptable, and capable of handling whatever comes my way. Number 4, rejection is protection. This next season will create a better version of myself. Number 5, not all change is bad, and I am capable of creating positive change in my life. Number 6, I make positive choices and choose paths that lead to growth and fulfillment. Number 7, I release internal resistance and allow change to unfold naturally and gracefully. Number 8, I let go of what I cannot control and focus on what I can create. And number 9, I thrive in my seasons of change, discovering potential I never knew existed. So I hope all 9 of these affirmations are helpful. Like I said before, you can use them however you want to. So feel free to use them and write them down in your journal. If you want to post them on your wall, feel free to do that. If you want to change the language so that way it makes more sense or holds true to you, definitely feel free to do that. And yeah, I hope that this is all helpful. This navigating change topic will be the meditation that will be posted on Wednesday. So look out for that. That's kind of why I changed the whole schedule, so that way it kind of lines up with the topic of the week. So yeah, look out for that. And yeah, our next live is going to be next Monday. So this live is every Monday. We talk about different topics every week. And it looks like Kiki gave me my topic for next week. So next week's topic is going to be financial security, or the scarcity mindset, for the affirmations. So look out for that. And then, yeah, I will be posting the next class. Well, I do meditation and journaling classes on Zoom. So the first class of the year should be, I want to say, next Friday. I have to double check it, but I'll be posting the times for that. If you want updates for classes, feel free to go to haveninspired.com and subscribe for all of the updates for the meditation and journaling classes that are coming up. And check out my book, Non-Self, Let Me Be Great. If you're struggling with self-doubt and you want a workbook, you can always grab it off of Amazon. And the link is going to be, it's all over the place. It's in the bio. It's on the website at haveninspired.com. It's going to be in the links in this video. So feel free to check that out and grab that. Otherwise, thank you all for tonight. I really appreciate you all. I'll see you next week. It's 2:50 in the morning. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you. I really do appreciate you. Get some sleep, get some rest, and you all have a great rest of your day. I will see you next Monday. And make sure to share this out. If there's anybody else you feel that is benefiting, make sure to that can benefit from this live. Make sure to share this out and share it, and bring people to the live next week. I will talk to you soon. Bye.